All right. Let's see if I can hang out here another half hour. Get the voices heard. Get some more voices heard to the planet before I go, because it's important. All right, Utah. You know Utah. It's amazing. Was it Ohio? Ohio, Utah. And what's another state? Oklahoma. Man, there's some crazy stuff. Really is condensed in as an example, those 3 states. Do you not think? So much goes on in those 3 states. I don't know why, but it's something to be alarmed about if you live there. I'll tell you what, I would be. Well, then again, look where I'm at. British Columbia, surrounded by crazy shit myself, right? What do we got to say? Steve, first of all, I want to tell you how much I appreciate everything you're doing. I found your channel over a year ago, and I love your no BS attitude. Every day I look forward to listening to others share their stories and experiences. I'm glad you're the voice for me and many others. You seem to be a straight shooter while helping to share the truth without passing judgment. I'm just an ordinary person, and it's taken me nearly a year to decide whether or not to write to you and share my story. I just want this to lift this weight off my chest that I could have been carrying for so many years. I'm not looking for fame or attention, but I've never shared my story with anyone until now. I grew up an outdoor enthusiast. I've spent most of my life enjoying God's creations of the outdoors, such as fishing, hunting, and camping. My experience happened in 1993 in one of Utah's largest mountain ranges, where my family owns a section of land miles away from civilization. My family had an RV that we just left on the property, and that's where my parents slept. But at the age of 14, and my young brother being the age 12, we would sleep in a 2-man tent about 20 yards from our RV and back into the trees. It was a warm summer night. With the sky full of stars, my dad would leave the exterior RV light on for us just for reassurance. I remember my younger brother fell asleep within minutes of crawling into his sleeping bag, and I laid awake for quite some time. I would have guessed it was all well after midnight when I started hearing the sounds of someone or something walking on the forest floor, the snapping of twigs and the crunching of dried leaves. I could distinctively hear the heavy footsteps of bipedal walking closer and closer to our tent. My first thought was, who was hiking in the middle of the night without a flashlight on our property? I remember covering my mouth to silence my breath. I wanted to yell and scream, but I couldn't. What I seen was a silhouette of a large, upright being figure, and then the hand with large fingers projected from the outside light onto our tent. It started pressing down on the top of our tent. It seemed to be feeling and studying the material. I could hear heavy breathing, and I remember listening and thinking the lung capacity in this thing was larger than any human I've ever heard before. I gripped onto my brother so tight he started to make a humming sound. Then his sleeping bag started to sound with his movement. Suddenly, the creature's hand froze in place and then pulled away from our tent. It turned around and disappeared in the direction it came from. My brother woke up either from the sound of the footsteps or the discomfort of me squeezing him, which is almost immediately he fell back to sleep. I later asked him if he remembered hearing or seeing anything that night. He responded by saying no, although we thought he remembered waking up. But I never told him what I witnessed that night, though I know what I'd seen and heard that night. That morning I started to tell my dad what I'd witnessed, and before I could say anything, he referred by saying how kids usually have a hyperactive imagination. So I immediately stopped, knowing it wasn't going to be taken seriously and never wanted to be perceived as crazy. I've tried to block out the events that happened that night and move on, but I think about that night daily. Thank you, Steve, for taking the time to read my story. I hope that it may shed some light and possibly help someone else who is struggling as I have for so many years. Brandon. Okay, Brandon. I absolutely appreciate you sending that email in, all right? It takes guts to do what everybody's doing, for obvious reason. There's a lot of human beings out there that have been conditioned to be very, very dumb. And they don't have the best reactions at times when it comes to the reality, our reality, and the reality of what's really going on in this crazy round ball. It's obvious your father did not have any knowledge of these beings, because if he had, there's no frickin' way you two boys would have been out in that tent next to the timber. Not a chance, right? But it's unfortunate that has been the position that the majority of the people who have had these experiences have been put in, that position of having to keep their mouths shut due to the threat of being labeled, or ridiculed. All right? So bravo to you for coming out here and sharing your story with me, to be shared with everybody here today. And I sincerely hope that that has lifted that weight off your chest. And what is it now? The year 2021? How old's the internet? How many people have been talking about this topic online? And how many people haven't shared their stories until my channel came forward? The no bullshit place with no stories being twisted or withheld back, right? Why hasn't that happened before? 4 million people are listening to this channel a month average and climbing. And this channel has over 50 million video views on it to date and climbing. Over 50 million. I think that probably equals my channel. It'll probably get taken off eventually, unless I get to take it off first. And I honestly look forward to the day somebody attempts to take me to the side and have a talking to with me. I'm absolutely looking forward to that moment, if it happens. Without a doubt. We'll be in for a bit of a surprise. Alright, what do we got? Hello. Please don't share my name. But if you'd like to read this email on your channel, please do. It might help someone to look at things in a different way. It might also be highly criticized, but that is the nature of free thought. No sacred cows allowed. Either way, I'm sending this on a lark, and it is all just conjecture and imagination. I'm just a guy dreaming up connections and filling in the blanks. No science degree here. I can't even do algebra. I've been watching your videos and I have some thoughts. I've never had any experiences of note regarding Sasquatch, etc., but I've always been interested in alternative technology and things that are considered fringe, and I have lots of time on my hands to think now. As always, everything seems connected, but it might actually be in this situation, worth thinking about. Last night I watched your video, quote, "It knocked him out of his shoes," end quote, and I lay awake thinking about it. This entire story set off some bells in my head. As your viewers said in the comments, the force required to knock a man out of his shoes is fatal, period. This made me think about the rest of the man's story, since physics seems to be testifying against his assumption of being pushed over. He gave some clues. 1 second he was talking, and the next he was flat on his face with his drink 20 yards down the trail and his glasses twisted up in a ball. Shoe the other way. I think this is all data that tells more about what happened to him. I would wager that this man has missing time, but doesn't know it. If he lost time, to him, the transition from losing memory to being thrown forward would be seamless. But he could have been yanked out of his shoes, then thrown back forward by something. The drink flying and the glasses being destroyed sound like a magnetic effects to me. Aluminum, glass, and crystal react to magnetic fields in different ways. And if the glasses had a wire in them, they would easily be manipulated by a strong electromagnetic field. If you look at this part of the story in perspective, and then the actions of the entity can be seen differently. It put branches on the trail to mark the spot where this event was happening. Black branches, a warning. The other man, with the pistol, felt the spot on the trail without being told. Here's the theory. You often ask why these encounters usually happen in river or stream valleys. I think that you should consider the presence of flowing water. Water, especially water which flows over rock strata above and below ground, can easily become an electromagnetic river. Water usually becomes a weak electrolyte. Geology also has magnetic and paramagnetic interaction. I don't know what this has to do with Sasquatch, but flowing water has always had an importance to sacred sites and standing stones. I think the beings you're talking about must be able to see the magnetic spectrum, flux and flow, and might even require certain electromagnetic conditions for life. They must also be more attuned to electromagnetic spectrum than we are, which would explain the fact that trail cams never catch them and why they hate iron tubes pointed at them. If we make this assumption, then we may also jump to another more extreme conclusion. The Sasquatch are able to be in and out of what we consider material reality by their nature of organically interacting with it. They can see and use window areas, and they can see spectrum invisible to us. Maybe this is why their eyes glow, either slipping through the cracks in our visible reality or changing their own molecular makeup. The stories seem to point at them being able to transition their physical being somehow or make use of existing invisible phenomenon, if just for awesome camouflage. Recast all these interactions and you can start to figure out why these beings are territorial. We are blind to these phenomena and they are not. And they do not want us wandering into these windows, portals, or flows. Who knows? This might also explain the UFO-Bigfoot connection and why people see orbs. If we have the sensory equipment to see these events, it might take a very bright light to get through our closed eyelids. We can't resolve an image, but we know something's there. Your brain assembles images from your eyes into a picture. Why not this? If we go back to the story about the shoes, we can start to imagine the area is an electromagnetic circuit. Magnetism flows. It's not stationary. If the being could see some connection from the river to the trail and maybe the window area, then maybe the rock in the river was to disturb the flow. In other words, this creature could have been looking out for these two men, just as growling at hunters might be for their own good. As the weather of this invisible world changes, we could be totally blind to it. If these beings are indeed rooted in the electromagnetic world, that would also suggest why people can be paralyzed by their encounters. Again, all speculation. I don't know how this would work. I just think there's a bunch we don't know. Did you carry a compass into the woods? Maybe it will behave strangely. You might have only seen one because the rocks mask the signal of your phone. Who knows? Maybe take a gas meter on the trail with you. Fun games. A gas meter? G-A-U-S-S? We tend to see these things in our own context, and the idea of a territorial young Bigfoot seems to be projection. If these beings indeed have all this power, it seems unlikely they would develop in that way, though there seem to be good and bad beings with good and bad windows. Why does the government not want people to know about them? This seems obvious to me. A serious study of a creature that can do these things by nature would likely alter science as we know it forever. Our understanding of matter, technology, and reality is incomplete. Like Jesus and the blind man, we are the blind man. Reread that story and then think about why people who see Bigfoot once tend to see these forever after, and vice versa. A note about the young man who was looking at the turtle in another video. This seems very much like a traumatic experience of another kind. Our brains try to protect us from extreme trauma. I've recently gone through a bunch of counseling for someone close to me, and have seen how traumatic memories can be hidden and masked by our brains, and how the brain makes alternate memories. I hope this young man can find peace, and that the symbolic letting go of Bigfoot can help his mind to heal and deal away with the traumatic memories. His experience is totally valid, but I hear a lot in that story that makes me concerned for him. Thanks for putting all this out there. It takes balls. You have my respect. Again, read this on your channel if you wish, but please keep my name confidential. I'm sure if the government wants to know who's watching your videos, they do. LOL, but I'm unemployed, and the last thing I need is some Bigfoot drama online for the snowbirds to find out before an interview. Ha ha ha, just passing the time. Cabin fever in Michigan. Alright, Mr. Unemployed. Read and shared. Read and shared. And yes, what you say does make sense to me. And there's a high probability that a lot of that has some concrete to it. If you guys, and a lot of people, I've had a few people mention about being grounded, and being grounded is being on the bare earth with your bare feet, and to ground yourself once in a while. And I firmly believe that is a possibly very handy point to pass on to many of you out there. If you can, ground yourself out and try to do it on a regular basis. Just throw the socks and the shoes off and go out and stand in the dirt or the grass for a while, walk around and ground yourself. All right? We are energy, and obviously the planet's energy as well. And you know what happens, like say you get out of your car, there's a grounded properly after a road trip, and you touch something and you get zapped because you're not grounded out. And I've been convinced from others that we need to ground ourselves periodically. Okay? All right? Just try it. Look into it, and it's harmless. It only takes a few minutes. Just try it. Just do it every once in a while. Be sure to ground yourself out. Okay? I don't know if you can see me. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's It's a pretty cool mountain backdrop though, isn't it? And the camera's facing the west and the sun's going down, so I don't imagine you'll be able to see me too well, which obviously isn't important. You can see my ugly mug enough. Before I forget, let me tell you guys again one more time. Important notes to make, alright? If you're going down a trail in the woods, in any park, anywhere, at any time, if you feel terrified, a loss of time, foggy in the head, difficult to move, possibly, or if you can sense that there isn't one sound of nature and it's dead eerily quiet, you need to turn around and walk back the exact same way you came. Don't get off of that line of trail that you came in on, and don't go any further ahead. Alright? That's possibly going to prove to be a very important move for many of you. Okay, guys? So pass that one on to as many people as you can. And if they laugh or giggle at you, you can refer them to this channel possibly if you want. But that is a very important point to make for all you out there today at this time. Okay? Alright. Hey there, Steve. My name is Derek Hall. I'm glad to have found y'all. Learning to respond from honest self-awareness while respecting people as individuals basically sums up this school of hard knocks I've been calling my life. I'm grateful for your work here, the positivity it brings, and my happy recognition of a role model in an unexpected location. Alright, man, thanks for those kind words. I absolutely appreciate that. Since I like your focus upon the whys in this mystery, I'll try sticking to that theme here by asking the questions I've been pondering since my own experience. It seemed like good exercise from where I'm currently seated, but it could instead be just a mess. I guess we'll see. Why is it so damn quiet? And why didn't I notice that fact until I heard the lone white butterfly? Why did it take 2/3 of a cigarette's time for the sound of that single car approaching and passing by that stretch of highway had completed? Did the bridge play tricks with the sound? How could the time it takes for an unsmoked cigarette to burn near its end contain enough history to continuously alter the rest of one's life in ways seemingly multi-dimensional? Why did I begin reading those observation point plaques from right to left instead of left to right when doing so required such an awkward route? Why did I continue on with the right to left thing after it was obvious to me I'd started at the end of the intended message, since the photo above the writing was a shot from the new bridge, making the old bridge or destruction a logical place to start, right? Why did it sound like that car was never ever going to pass me? Did the sound bother me because I was or am what's being termed a highly sensitive person who, as an 8-year-old child, ran behind furniture and covered their ears when mom's 70s polyester made that awful sound as she scratched an itchy elbow or smoothed her slacks? Was it because of my then still undiagnosed ADD that I couldn't read the words on that plaque, but kept staring at it anyway, as if pretending to do so out of habit maybe, while waiting for the car to pass? Does autism really factor into these encounters, and if so, do ADD symptoms shared by me and, according to a study I just cherry-picked, over half of the children on the autism spectrum somehow have me further factored into this? LOL. Is it positive that the being I would soon associate with a dark patch off to my left noticed that I was pretending to read or that I was distracted by a presence yet to be determined, and could this have distracted them, causing a maddening feedback loop? When the noisy car had finally rounded the bend past the bridge, and I had gotten over the surprising volume of my own chuckled amusement in such relative silence, how come I still couldn't read, and why did that fact bother me so much? If I was truly alone, even if I actually believed I was alone, why did I pretend to have finished reading that second plaque from right before turning slightly to proceed to the next? What? All the world's a stage? Why did I purposely avoid a double take toward the dark patch to my left? At a level where my instincts involved 3 years prior, in '96 at work on a lunch break, when I raised my voice to ask the man with the steady eyes some 10 yards away if he had any Sasquatch stories. Was it really because I thought he was secretly laughing at the convo I'd started at our table, or did I just need to hear him tell me, from behind those eyes, about a spot on his own property where his horses wouldn't go, and something new to me at the time about a smell quite different than death? Will I ever forget the way that guy put out a cigarette? Back at the plaques by the bridge, was it because my cigarette was getting closer to the dark patch that the stench came on so sudden? Did the long sound of that car's passing mask that of a breeze missed by their keen ability and my chance of remembering? Did an unexpected hasty retreat disrupt that steady vanishing point to the angle of movement they'd maintained between us up to then? Am I glad I didn't do the double take? Are you kidding? How can it be that after all these years of sightings shared online, I have yet to hear anyone describe that smell in a way I can relate to? I'm not talking about specific attempts while searching for reference, like my own recollections of elephant musk and cleaning processed decks after a long Alaskan crab season, all balled up in a sudden stressful mash. But how trying to figure it out turned into some kind of olfactory memory scan which couldn't be stopped, and led to the realization that the scent itself was crawling or clawing its way towards some primal threshold within me, and with a certain psychic intelligence well beyond my intimidation. Is this memory blocked out by others? Can that trick be taught? Please. How or why did I connect the stench with the dark patch in the tree line 20 feet away so quickly? Was skipping that double take really my choosing? When it comes to describing the greatest terror several of my folks here have experienced, how many have missed the very root of their fear? Why did I feel like I'd been all at once caught in the act of my each and every most secret wrongs, past, present, and future? Is my deepest fear elusive, or am I still on the run? By what name are the people, tribe, or nation known for whom the dark patch represents? Honesty? Was my exit that day noted, or later shared? Did my feigned unawareness exceed that of my ability to read? Stooping to crush my cigarette before putting it in my pocket like that was just my normal thing, was that one see through, and why does it put me at thinking that it was the case? How did that little geo-tracker go so fast? 20 years before that particular day, a butterfly wings and a dark patch would have been the last such of seasons before the shocking, sorrowful changes to that region, and now I wonder, had kin been there then? Has such visits since occurred at regular times? I'm sure you study the pictures. How silly was I then when trying to read the lines? Is it still possible to travel from the third tallest bridge in the state of Washington all the way to Steve's backyard with rarely a human notice? Most I've written on this topic and grateful for the exercise. Thank you, folks. Until next time. Derek, end user. Okay, Derek. That's not your average email sent in, but hopefully somebody on here can relate to your words and might add in to it. And if you want to share some more in the future, the door's wide open, man. And thank you very much for sending that email. Taking the time to do that, okay? Here's another one. Hi, Steve. I still really can't believe that anyone, has given over this already fantastic channel. To the many victims, oops, I can't read this one. Not yet. I'm sorry. But that is a huge email, and hopefully I get permission to share it, because it's a doozy. And there's another one. Steve, I really appreciate what you're doing, respect your approach, efforts, and commitment to the topic, and your genuine sincerity. My wife has family in Deep Cove, North Van, so I have a connection to your area and have for some 42 years. Always had a love and appreciation for Canadians, however we live north of Seattle. I'm not reaching out to tell you about a Sasquatch encounter, but rather wanted to tap into your hunting experience, specifically in identifying animal vocals. My son works in security and was checking out a remote power station east of Tacoma in a wooded area approximately 1 or 2 in the morning. As soon as he and his partner arrived and got out, they heard this sound, see attached, and turned it up or listened with headphones. My son recorded it using his phone and decided to immediately exit the area. Can you tell me what this animal is? All the best to you and Sarah from Matt and Kim and the Austin family. We'd love to meet you sometimes, if we're ever to make it back to Canada and Deep Cove with all this COVID craziness. Thank you, Matt Austin. Okay, Matt, thanks for that. And I listened to the recording. I'll put it here for everybody to listen to and crank up the volume. At first I thought possibly, Lynx or Bobcat, but I've heard those, and it does not sound like that. The beginning of the sound sounds very unfamiliar to me. I know, obviously we have the same wildlife that you do in Washington State, just south of the border. So what do we have? We got coyotes that are very vocal, wolves are very vocal, elk are very vocal, moose are somewhat vocal during the autumn and fall. Big cats, cougars, lynx, and bobcat are all fairly vocal, but nothing sounds like that to me. So, that being the case, we'll let this sound rip with all of you out there, and you can all take a stab at saying what you feel might be in the comment section below. And I can assure you that it's possibly not any of the game animals I just mentioned, because it doesn't sound familiar to me. But let's do it together and have a go at it. And without being a clown, let's see if any of you have a solid answer for this sound, or if you have heard anything similar or identical, or maybe even possibly in your same area and you've heard the exact same sound. You never know, right? So thanks for going out of your way to email. Thanks for the kind words. And thank your son for sending that recording as well to share with everybody here today. All right. Now, I got enough time, I think. Maybe I will. Oh no. Let's see what else we got here. Sure, there's more. It's endless. I'm getting ready to relocate. And it's going to take a big, long effort and some time. I know, hard to imagine I'm leaving here in all these mountains, but I'm not leaving for good. But definitely relocating to a different place on the planet. Now, what else we have here? Yeah, so I'm just trying to get as much of this done as I can, get as many words out as I can, and I keep trying to get as many new emails into my eyeballs as I can when I have the time. Dear sir, thank you for answering my first lot of questions. Well, this is questions from Scotland, I think it was. I didn't write down the title. It sounds familiar. Dear sir, thank you for answering my list of questions. You even got a hunt story as well. I have some more questions, and I hope you have time to answer. The first two are the important ones, but the rest are just for fun, for your viewers, so you don't need to answer if you don't want to. Number 1. What would your list of warning signs be that a Bigfoot is in a vicinity and you should proceed with caution, bearing in mind that some people are not blessed with their sixth sense? I don't think of you as a Bigfoot expert, just curious as to your own opinion on this. Alright, my answer would be, first and foremost, every hair on your body turning to wire. That's number 1. Accompanying that, for indicators that these things are around you, would be the extreme feeling of being stared at. And I mean extreme. Alright? You have an extreme feeling of something staring you down. What else? Obviously, a very nasty, nasty odor around you. It's almost sticky, and you can almost taste it, and it'll resemble death, wet dog, rotten meat, garbage, musk, all in one unpleasant little ball. If that smells around you and you're feeling all the above feelings, 100% there's one staring you down and trying to freak you out. As well, screams or growls or roar that literally vibrate your rib cage. Alright? And then of course your visual. But those are the main indicators that there is one around you presently. For certain. Eerie silence, nature comes to a dead stop, dead still. That's added in there as well. And then obviously there's the physical evidence, tracks, trees completely snapped in half where they shouldn't be, or stacked up unnaturally across your trail, whether it be in front of you or behind you on the way out, after you've already went up the trail. That's an alarming one too. Hopefully that answers, hopefully that's a good answer for that one question. Number 2, when looking back, what hunt has given you the most satisfaction? Whew, that's a tough question without specifics. Like, does that mean my own hunting, personal, or Guided hunt? I'm not sure. You know, it's a toss-up with my own hunting. It was only 2 years ago I possibly had the most satisfying hunting season I've ever had in my entire life, and I didn't get anything. So that was that was a big pinnacle for me in my outdoor experiences. As well, possibly when I was 13 or 14 or whatever it was, when I finally got a hunting license, had my bow, went out and taught myself how to hunt, and I harvested a great big massive black-tailed buck after watching him all summer long and telling people about him. They didn't believe me, and I got him, right in the heart of that arrow, and that was a very, very, very huge impact. That day was a huge impact in my life, and it started to create the monster that I am now, right? Whatever you want to call me. But anyways, those are definitely two major days of hunts experiences for me. Then what else? In the guided hunt section of the pie, probably when I guided that one man from Utah for his Grand Slam ram, Regular Joe, worked for Utah Hydro. That story's back in the page here somewhere on the YouTube channel. That was a huge memory for me. One of the first memories that come to mind when I'm asked that question. And as well, another time I guided a 16-year-old kid from New York who was on basically a reunion hunt with his father, who had one of those evil parents who intentionally kept him away from the other parent just to get at the parent, which is absolutely cruel. And, oh man, I just saw a big fish jump in the lake. Anyway, that's probably another real good one too for me. Maybe I'll tell a story one day. Hopefully that's a good answer. Makes sense. What else have we got? 3. Oh. Fun questions. Bernard Pivot questions. It must be. What sound or noise do you love? What? What sound or noise do you love? That can be answered in so many different ways. I don't know. What sound or noise do you love? Obviously, the sound of nature is huge. The sound of the river is huge. Noise, I wouldn't consider noise. The sound of an elk bugling or a bull moose grunting in the mountains on a frozen day is absolutely pretty frickin' cool too. What sound or noise do you hate? I hate the sound of mainstream news. I hate the sound of politicians with a passion. What is your favorite curse word? The F-bomb. If that's considered a curse word. I consider it a great word. What profession other than your own would you have liked to have done? Oh, without a doubt, I would love to have been a professional cinematographer and film and went on adventure and brought all of the real world to all your eyeballs. But unfortunately, I didn't have the support or the direction or anyone around me who could have supported me and steered me in that direction in life. So, but I'm making the best of it now, right? What profession would you not like to have done? Oh man, if I could have went back in time, I would 100% not have walked in the door of that Union sheet metal roofing outfit in Victoria back in the day when I was a teenager then, still I think. Yeah, I definitely would not have stepped foot in that door if I could go back in time. But it was what you did at the time. But anyways, regards, Danny. Right, Danny? Thanks for that email. I hope it's entertaining for everybody. And what do we got on the timer here? Alright. Alright, we still got some time for more. Let me mark this as red.